First, I thought I'd introduce Stephen, since he's played such a big role in this whole project for many, many years, since 1999, when he first created what was then called Winnslie Parkway. And then up until 2013, it was developed and used, but not as heavily because it didn't have a trail on it. And it didn't have seating. It was very pretty, but it wasn't used by the community that much. And just by chance, it turned out that the railroad, Union Pacific, had to do an expansion, and so they had to do some infrastructure work, which caused them to need to take down the entire parkway. So all the trees were removed, all the plants, everything. It was down to the dirt. So in 2014, Stephen and David worked together, and Anna Arbetter as well. Three landscape architects put together what you see now. So you can introduce David. How's that?
All right. I'd like to introduce David Bier, the landscape architect for this expansion project. I've worked with David for over 30 years, and I can only speak to exceptional quality of what he's done. He's worked in Dubai, graduate of Ball State University, master's degree from University of Pennsylvania under Ian McHarg, who was one of the most famous landscape architects that ever was. And he's done work for the Field Museum, Vietnam. He's worked in Vietnam, worked in Dubai. He had his office right up here in the 5100 block of Ravenswood for 30 years. That's how I got to know him and to be able to help him. David is an exceptional landscape architect, and with that, I'll let him show you exactly how exceptional he is.
Yeah, Stephen and I have known each other for 30 years. We worked together on many, many, many projects. So it's been a pleasure. He's been my mentor, honestly, for a long time. And if anybody knows plant material, it's Stephen. Stephen knows his plants. Okay, so I would like to give you, we've developed a master plan for Lawrence to Winnslie. And a master plan is a framework plan. It's not the detailed construction documents. It's just sort of how the big components fit together in the design. So a big example of a big component is a pathway, a seating area, major planting of trees. It does not get into specifics exactly. That's in the design development phase. So think of it as sort of the rough layout of a house, the rooms and that sort of thing. So before we go over the master plan, I'd like to look at the last page of this, because we conducted a survey, 49 responded. And what I find is interesting is the walking. Now the trail component is extremely important to everybody basically everybody who answered this survey. And the sitting and relaxing. So, which is about the fifth one down there. So, working those different things in, and the frequency of it too. Weekly, people are seeing themselves do that. And that was 26 respondents said weekly. 10 said daily. Anyway, I felt this was pretty important data, and it says to me a lot about how that space is going to be used. Another overarching sort of approach was utilizing as much as possible the existing plant material that's here. And I'm speaking mainly of the trees. The third framework item is the existing elevation change that exists on between the embankment and the future curb height. In some places, it's 4 or 5 feet difference, like down at the south end there. Up right around here is also about 4 or 5 feet. Resource number 5, which is our building blocks, the abutment blocks, we can use those abutment blocks to either retain that grade or magnify that grade, lift it up, create something higher spot for it, or retain it and create a more sheltered space. So we're working with, those are all our components. What people want, the grading, the blocks, the trees, we bring it all together and we come up with a master plan that hopefully addresses that. So we have the design process, We have several phases to it. An early phase is site inventory and analysis. That's basically collecting our information together, information from the city, survey data, conducting our own surveys. This is a site and inventory analysis deliverable, this right here. And then we have concept design, which is just more internal bubble diagramming out the spaces. And then followed by the master plan phase, which is again this information in this packet. And then after that, we go through several, the design development process, which is basically working out the details and more nuanced relationships to everything that's in the master plan. An example would be figuring out the topographic elevation of how the actual pathway moves through the site. And so that's the grading plan. That's a design development component. Tree species, plant species, that's design development. Everything needed to then produce a set of construction drawings, which is the detailed drawing set and the material quantity information, plant counts that a contractor then uses to build the project. From that point, then we switch over to construction supervision, bidding and construction supervision. Bidding is soliciting construction bids, choosing a contractor. Contractor signs an agreement with NeighborSpace, and my company Futurity oversees the construction. And we manage the contractor as they're doing the work. And then, as Mark said, then it goes into the maintenance component.
Construction phase is this year?
Yeah. So we're aiming to have the construction drawings produced in the next month, by early July. And then the project will go out to bid in roughly mid-July. We hope to have bids within 2 weeks of that. It's a relatively, even though it's a long, big project, it's relatively straightforward. So it shouldn't take long for contractors to produce a bid. So we're hoping for construction in August, September, something like that. Maybe some of the plant material will need to go in and be planted next spring. We don't really know yet because we haven't specified the plans. But so that's a time. Yeah.